This presentation is on the important points in an oral defense. The objectives are to discuss the findings of a dissertation and also to highlight the important points of an oral defense. The article chosen to review findings was entitled Counseling Preparedness and Responsiveness of Industrial Psychologists in the Face of COVID-19. It was written by Marietta du Plessis and Emma C. Thomas. It was found out of the South African Journal of Industrial Psychology. According to du Plessis and Thomas, the pandemic-19 exacerbated so many stressors for the healthcare systems in which burnout and response of workplace stress increased. The reasons for this was because they felt the COVID-19 put the whole world in an upheaval. Prolonged lockdowns, business closures, social isolation, lifestyle disruptions, loss of personal income, and loss of productivity impact the global economy. Due to these stressors, the workplace counseling had become a very important aspect of how organizational psychologists would deal with workers. However, there were concerns about the preparedness of the organizational psychologists. So to determine the preparedness of the workplace organizational psychologists to react to current mental health needs of employees, especially in the context of the COVID-19, the researchers decided to explore how responsive the industrial psychologists were as it related to counseling, especially in the stressors that the community of workers were facing, and also to find out what kind of support system the psychologists had in reference to being able to take on these new challenges, because it disrupted their normal flow of work. So the purpose of the research was to determine how prepared industrial psychologists were to counsel employees during the pandemic. And it was so important for them to really consider how well they could meet the needs of the workers and quickly respond to things that were impacting the employees. And so a sample of 23 registered IOPs that had received training at different institutions had varying levels of professional experience were used in the study. Each participant was given a consent form. They were recruited from national organizations of IOP and looked at for taking part in the study. A qualitative interpretive study was done in their environment as the methodology for the research. The general premise was the central component of what was being looked at is counseling in terms of dealing with the employees with emotional problems and not so much work-related issues. To achieve the aim of an in-depth understanding of the registered IOPs, the experience of the workplace counseling was particularly important to the researchers, because studies had shown that the literature suggested that before COVID-19, IOPs did not feel adequately prepared for workplace counseling. They felt that was outside the scope of their practice, and many reported that they felt the need for IOPs to be prepared in counseling workers and helping them with their maladaptive behaviors and adjusting after COVID-19 was something that was way outside of the scope. Many did not feel comfortable doing that. It was something that was noted in the studies that IOPs were not comfortable serving the workers, the employees, as counselors to deal with mental health. They were used to dealing with constructing work plans and working through human resources just to work with work-related issues and not so much mental health issues that the employees were facing. Many felt what they were being asked to do or confronted with was outside the scope of their practice. So according to Plessis and Thomas, preparedness may be enhanced by education, practice, self-awareness, and other opportunities offered through the postgraduate studies and internship work as an IOP. Again, the IOP's results and findings really concluded by the researchers that a concerted effort needed to be made to equip IOPs as workplace counselors and to ensure that they were prepared rapidly for the changing environment, because the report showed that many felt that they weren't prepared. This was not the scope of their practice. They did not receive the sufficient education, even in their graduate work, to care for mental health crises that they were facing in the workplace. They were more comfortable referring them out to psychologists and having other healthcare professionals deal with these difficulties that the employees were facing. So the need to deal with employees' mental health also posed a particular challenge to their participants' capacity. The psychological ill-preparedness challenged the IOPs and compounded a lack of existing organizational support that they didn't have, because this was not something that was considered that would have to be dealt with in the workplace. So the findings revealed better preparation would be what would help in future issues that would take place in the workplace, dealing with burnout, stress, and overwork. Some of the limitations mentioned in the study was the findings were based exclusively on the opinions of the self-reported counseling skills of the IOPs. Data collection did not include direct observation of the workplace activities, because this was done on one-on-one interviews, and this was purely by the feelings of the IOPs and their perceptions. All the references to postgraduate training of the IOPs were based on the perception of the study's participants. And there was no review of the curricula to ascertain and validate their perception of their trainings. Data and the findings focused only on the preparedness and responsiveness for the component of emergency management. Future research should focus on IOPs and to ensure that they had resilience and sustained ability to help employees even with the changing environment. So as we go into the discussion of important points for an oral dissertation, we'll look at first the introduction. The introduction is important because it provides a brief description of research problems and explains the chapter's organization. Within the introduction, the demographics of the participants is given. Generally, after this description, a table may be shown to give clear description of the age, gender, and experience. Because of this reason, Roberts and Hyatt 2019 recommended that it's very important to plan before writing this section to determine if the data requires a table or another format that's easy to explain. The data might even be best described in writing. Next would be the research question. The research question, it defines the research, why it's important. The research, why the research is important to embark on. It sets the stage for the reason for embarking on the research. According to Zarlab, UCLA 2014, she asked that you would really be prepared to express why the research is being completed, has been done, and the reason for it, and the methodology of the dissertation would follow with describing the design, the specific procedures used in completing the dissertation. During the oral defense, it's going to be important to describe the methodology and why it was chosen and how well it worked out. Results is a description of the results during the oral defense will give a clear give a brief review of the findings and how they are related to the literature review. An effort needs to be made in presenting all these parts, especially the results. It has to be presented in a very objective manner, accurately and objectively, so that the tables, the figures, and graphics should be well organized and easily to be understood. And important data should be described. The conclusion provides the researcher with an opportunity to creatively analyze, synthesize, and evaluate the information. This is a great place for the researcher to objectively present what the revelations, the insights they receive from the findings in doing the study as it relates to the literature review. It is a place of deeper connection, and significance of the findings can be highlighted. It's also important for the conclusion to be made from the findings and not from the researcher's opinion. The most important takeaway from this is that it is really important to practice and be prepared for the oral dissertation.